I've always loved my boy Silver, but he's kinda weird. And I don't mean he's weird, but his whole situation is weird. See, Silver for the longest time has been a bit of what I call a middleman, where he's not a minor character, but he also doesn't play a major role. He has a lot of depth to him, but it's never really used. So he kinda just floats somewhere around here. I mean, his last meaningful role was in what, Forces? Yeah. So for the longest time, I didn't think there was any hope left for Silver. That is, until the Year of Shadow, where we got a full year focusing on Shadow with tons of great things such as Dark Beginnings, Generations, and a movie. Overall, the Year of Shadow turned out pretty damn good, arguably one of the best years as a fan. So it got me thinking about the future. What if they did the same for Silver? A fully dedicated campaign towards Silver the Hedgehog that could include his own game, a short series, and more. Could it work? If you ask me, yeah. Sort of. I think there is one problem Silver has that's unique to him that needs to be addressed first. But if they do this right and fully realize the potential of Silver, I think a year of Silver could be one of the greatest years in Sonic history. So let's talk about it. I'm Veros. I hope you guys are having an awesome year so far, and if you have any thoughts about a year of Silver, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Let's talk about this real quick. You got characters like Tails, Amy, Knuckles, Blaze, so why Silver over all of them? Well, honestly, I think he's very attractive. What I mean is that he has a lot of substance to attract a wide audience, like Sonic and Shadow have. Here's what I mean. Sonic has a strong influence because of his charismatic, carefree, and adventurous attitude. He carries a certain aura around him that inspires the fans and gives them something to run towards. Shadow has a strong influence with his complex past and is often a symbol of power and also gun. So what does Silver bring to the table? Well, he's not as confident as Sonic nor as mature as Shadow. I'd actually argue that of the three, Silver possesses the most weaknesses. Isn't that bad? No, not at all actually. I think that makes him more relatable. He's got a goal in mind to save the future, and throughout 06 he consistently makes mistakes and questions himself. But no matter what, he's willing to try whatever it takes to save his ruined future, and we call that hope. From being tricked to losing his friend, he always endures and keeps going because he has hope for a better tomorrow. And overall, I think this makes Silver stand out. He has his ultimate goal that others may see as futile, but he sees what could be. He's an inspiring character, but his whole gimmick is interesting as well. He's from a future that we have never seen, and honestly, his psychic powers are just really unique and cool. There's so much you can do with that. He's got all the right tools to be this influential and major presence in the Sonic series, and I think this is what Sega initially was trying to do in Sonic 06. He had his own campaign with a developed backstory, his own set of powers, gameplay unique to him, and the ability to go super with Sonic and Shadow, which creates memorable moments like this. Silver has so many aspects to him that are worth exploring through a year of Silver, and I think with Silver being a symbol of hope, that could be the driving message Sega pushes to the audience, like they did with Fearless, and they can express this through an animated series and his own game, which leads me to... He doesn't have the speed of Sonic, nor really moves like Shadow, but Silver can fly pretty fast with his psychic abilities. Plus, Shadow literally just flies when he boosts, so if Sega wants to be lazy and just reskin that, then well there you go, free assets. So that could be how Silver moves around, and his main source of attack would be throwing Psybeams and using psychokinesis on the world around him. If you want a really good example of this, Scarlet Nexus, which is a game I love, uses psychokinesis really creatively. There's quick time events with objects you can use, and there's tons of psychic combos that make the combat fun. Silver's gameplay could be using his flight to get around the map and then integrating a deep combat system so he can use his psychokinesis more freely. And to prevent the combat feeling like a Werehog stage, just make the combat interactive and faster. And also, as I'm thinking about this, Silver's abilities would fit perfectly in an open world or open zone. Using his telekinesis to fly around and interact with all the objects in the world, which is perfect for puzzles. Not to mention, his abilities can work really well for a skill tree, where you would unlock new moves and combinations. Now, I don't know when a Frontiers 2 is coming, but don't you think Silver would be perfect there? Again, this is all hypothetical, but the point I'm trying to drive here is just how much potential Silver has in his own game. As for his story, I mean, his setting is perfect for a game. Because we have no idea what Silver's future actually looks like, there's endless possibilities for a fresh and creative setting. Once again, he has the things he needs to succeed in a game and a story. Sega just needs to take the risk and give him that proper push into the spotlight. But despite all this potential as a character, here's what I think is the problem. I don't think a year of Silver will happen for a while. I don't think Sega wants to do anything with Silver yet.
You wanna know why?
Because Sega! Silver over!
I want to talk about first impressions. First impressions of a character are important because it gives you something to look back on when you think about that character. And of course, first impressions aren't everything because a character can change over time. You might have hated Bakugo's guts in the beginning of My Hero Academia, but then were sobbing during Season 7. But first impressions are still important because it makes a character pretty memorable. Silver's first impressions was in the worst Sonic game of all time, and that shit is on his resume for the rest of his life. Every Sonic character that was introduced usually came from a game that you can look fondly of. Tails, Sonic 2, Knuckles, Sonic 3, Shadow, Sonic Adventure 2, and Blaze, Sonic Rush. All these games are beloved. Silver doesn't have that. He'd forgotten because he was bundled in such a bad game and people don't want to remember that. And yes, I know there are people out there who like 06, but for the majority, it's just not a game people are itching to play. But this isn't Silver's fault because despite the failure of the game, he's still a great character and has fans, but we all know he should have been so much more. Because 06 was retconned, he was reintroduced in Sonic Rivals, which, I mean, no one really cares about, and he's written like a total dickhead in this one, but it's kind of funny.
Finally collected enough rings for Knuckles and Rouge!
Thanks, Half Pint. I'll take those now.
And since then, he's just been a side character or a cameo. I think this is why Silver having his own game can be much harder to sell to the audience than Shadow because no one really remembers him well like they do with other characters. You can bring back Shadow anytime because you can draw upon all the best moments we've had with him, but with Silver, you can't really do that. At least, not yet. See, there's multiple options to reintegrate Silver's presence in the Sonic series. One, you make a new Sonic game, and have Silver play a prominent role alongside Sonic. Give him cutscenes and dialogue and give him memorable moments in said game. While Sonic is the main playable character, make side content where you get to play as Silver, like Sonic Frontiers open world in cyberspace. This way you can safely test how people receive Silver gameplay while also making sure he gets the attention he deserves. If you pull all of this off, I think you can make Silver relevant and get more people talking about him, which makes the Silver game much more likely to succeed. Option 2 is much more straightforward. Instead of making a new game to fix Silver, what if you fix the game that caused all this shit in the first place? Remaking Sonic 06, which surprisingly doesn't seem too far-fetched now. See, Sega so far has slowly but surely acknowledging a lot of Sonic's legacy, and I don't mean just the lore but all the cool shit we got to experience in the early 2000s. The vocal tracks, boss fights with shonen-like energy, and darker stories. Sega seems like they're no longer avoiding the Dark Age of Sonic and embracing it in a new way. You can see that in Shadow Generations. So what if they did the same with Silver? Take one of the most infamous games of all time and turn it into something that's now a solid game, but something Silver can use as a platform into relevancy. You give Silver the proper moments he deserves, Silver's popularity shoots up, and now people are hyped for a year of Silver. Of course, you don't have to do any of this before having a year of Silver. Sega could just one day go f it and announce Silver the Hedgehog the game. But I think the reason we haven't got anything like that is because of his legacy. He's a great character, and me and plenty of fans love him, but he's just nowhere near the level of influence Sonic and Shadow have. This is why the solution is to slowly drip him into new games before taking off with him. And one day they will. Silver's potential is unlike any other character. His background and persona is something I really wanted to highlight in the discussion just to show how influential he can be when given the right moments in games. He's more than deserving to get his own year, it's just going to take some time. So, if someone here at Sega is ever listening to this, give my boy a chance. If you take the time and necessary risk for him, you can create something truly memorable. Not just his own game, but a legacy that will forever be remembered and loved by the fans. And that's a future worth hoping for. I just dropped my water.